All right. It's good to see all of you, and we are going to be in Numbers chapter 11 this morning, and I think I saw someone passing out Bibles. If you do not have a Bible and you'd like to borrow one from us, all you need to do is raise your hand and we will get one to you. Numbers chapter 11, and this chapter, believe it or not, is everything that happens in this chapter is surrounding food. The people are fickle for food. And at first, when we hear that, we might think, for food, like, what is their problem? And yet we find ourselves oftentimes, we've got a term. The term is hangry. How many of you have ever experienced hangriness before? Yes. Hangry means that you get so hungry that you're angry. And you can get angry, you can lash out at anybody around you. I can remember, I told this story recently, so you may have heard it from me recently, but I can remember years ago when my kids were little, and when I first started taking them out by myself and shopping, to go do stuff, run errands or whatever throughout the day. And I can remember that early on they would they'd start to get real whiny. And me being, an adult, and I'm the type of person that I can get focused on something, and to the point that I don't even need to eat. I'm not even thinking about food. And then later on during the day, I'll be starving, but in the midst of the day, I can just go. And so as I'm, going throughout the day with my kids in tow, and we're just moving from place to place, and I think the first time I remember it was we were Christmas shopping for their mom and for, other people in the family, and we're just going, from the mall and going all over the place. And they started getting whining. It's like, man, what is your problem? What are you whining so much for? Like, my first response was, quit being so selfish. We're out here shopping for other people. Quit crying. And it wasn't until later on that I realized that it was because they were hungry. They were little kids. They needed to eat. I was an adult, and I was just, kind of like on the move, like, let's just go. And it's like, oh, what a bummer. So, after that, obviously, we'd go out shopping and doing things, or we'd be out for the day, and I would make sure, okay, we got to take a break, we'd take some snacks and all those kinds of things. And then from then on, you're like, let's stop, let's get something to eat, man. I'm going to hook you up. Let's stop, and we'll stop at In-N-Out, or we'll stop for burritos or whatever, and we'll just get hooked up, and then we'll continue shopping. And I realized that there was something to that. Some of us here in this room will get angry at people when we are hungry, when we haven't had enough food. We might get angry. And that is happening in this chapter. And what we want to see is, how does God handle that? One of the things that I love about the Old Testament, we're reading through the Old Testament on Sunday mornings. One of the things that I love is just having these general ideas. We get this picture of God, this basic picture of God, and how he operates with his people, how his people can be toward him, and then how he treats his people. And so that's why, as we're reading through this, man, we learned some great lessons in this chapter. There are two main divisions. You can see them up on the screen already. There is complaining, and then there is the craving. And so we're going to look at both of those. Let's look at complaining first in verses 1 through 3. So it says there in verse 1, now when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, for the Lord heard it, and his anger was aroused. So the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed or killed some in the outskirts of the camp. Now, we just talked about a moment ago about, man, what are these basic lessons that we get? Well, obviously, we learn this. We learn that God does not like complaining. Did you see that in there? The people complained. It displeased the Lord. Now, that ought to be enough for me to know that, hey, I should not be complaining, but, I still complain. But we need to understand that in our complaining, God does hear it, as it says here, for the Lord heard it, however, it displeased him. I need to know that my complaining displeases the Lord. Now, the next thing that happens is that his anger was aroused. And what he does is he judges the people. In fact, this is a fiery judgment here. So the fire of the Lord, he sent down fire to consume or to kill some of those that were on the outskirts of the camp. you get this picture of these people that are complaining, and they're out at the edge of camp. They're not, they're not with everybody else, mixing it up, but they're out there on the edge of the camp and they're complaining. And God here sends this fire and consumes some in the outskirts of the camp. But that valuable lesson, that man, I need to just be careful with what I'm doing and how I'm complaining. Now, we're not told there in verse 1 expressly why it is that they were complaining, but as we will find out, we'll continue to read, it had to do with food. We'll see it in just a moment. In fact, what they were complaining about, and this is what they'll complain about in a moment, is, man, we don't have enough meat. And we might find ourselves complaining, man, go to the refrigerator. You guys have probably never, ever done this. But go to the refrigerator, look through, and your refrigerator's full, because we live in America, man. You got a full refrigerator. And then you look through there and you'll do something like, not you, I'm sorry, but some people will look at it and be like, oh man, there's nothing to eat in here. What we mean by that, when I've said that before, what I mean is, look at all this food. I'm way too lazy to prepare any of it. So now I'm angry at my mom for not having, some microwavable mac and cheese, or, just have something that I can just stuff in my face right now. And people can find themselves complaining about that because it's not the right type of thing. These people were being fed by God. God had said something called manna to them, and we'll look at what manna is in just a moment. They had food to eat to sustain them, but they were not happy with that. It's like somebody going to their closet, looking through all 80 of their shirts or blouses and being like, man, I got nothing to wear. What? Man, you got a closet full of stuff, and you got a closet full of shoes, everything that I know, but man, I wore that last time or whatever, I just, I don't have nothing to wear, and getting angry about that. God is supplying all that they need. And so we find here that when they complain, it displeases the Lord. I need to be careful that when I start complaining, it displeases the Lord. The Lord hears it. Here in this case, his anger was aroused, and he consumes some of them. But in verses 2 and 3, we see that the fire is quenched. How is the fire quenched? Well, in verse 2, it says that the people cried out to Moses. And when Moses prayed to the Lord, the fire was quenched. This is how it works. The people bring their complaints to Moses. Moses turns and talks to God, and then God responds and stops the fiery judgment. And in verse 3, so that's Moses, called the name of the place Taberah, which means burning. Okay? Not a lot of explanation needed there. Because the fire of the Lord had burned among them. So those first 3 verses really give us an idea of what the rest of the chapter is about. However, you need to know this. What we just read right now, this is a pattern that the children of Israel will continue to repeat. If you were to go back just one chapter to chapter 10, verse 11, you would find there that the people, the cloud, those of you that were here last week, you'll remember this, that the cloud began to move. God was in the cloud. So as the cloud begins to move, all the people know, oh, it's time to go. We've got to follow the cloud. We've got to follow God in the cloud. So they have, and we're told back in chapter 10 at that point that it is I think it was the 21st day of the second month of the second year. So they've been out of Egypt for a year. They're heading into their second year. It's the second month. They're, okay, time to go. Here we go. They're on the move. It doesn't take very long for them to start going that something goes wrong. You all, or some of you have younger siblings, younger brothers or sisters. And family road trip, here we go, packed up, everything. Okay, yeah, I was there. We got all my stuff, and then you start taking off, and it doesn't take very long for somebody in the car to start complaining, does it? Mom, she's sitting too close to me. Dad, can you tell him to turn his music down? Why does it have to be so hot in here? Isn't there somewhere else to put my feet or whatever? We can have all kinds of complaints, and they can happen quick. That's generally because we're so selfish. That's what that is. Now, verse 4 takes us to our second and final of the main divisions. There's only 2 main divisions. There is the complaining, and then there is the craving. cravings. The cravings. I told you it's all about food. So in verse 4 we read this. Now the mixed multitude who were among them. Now, there's something that you want to understand here, that as the children of Israel were leaving Egypt, that there were people that were not Jews, they were not Israelites, that left with them. They saw the crowd leaving. Maybe they wanted, something other than Egypt, and they followed the rest of the group. That's very normal, right? A lot of us, man, we love a good mall. We love a good mall. Just show me where all the people are, and I'll go there. Now, not Nathan, because Nathan's not, he doesn't like big crowds. No way, man. Keep me away from the mall, right? I rarely go to the mall either. But, that's kind of our mentality is, wherever the big crowd's going, that's where we'll go. And so you can imagine that as millions of people are leaving Egypt, you have other people that were not Jews that would have gone with them. It's possible that they even picked up some people along the way. Like, what are all those people doing? They go to sea and they end up staying. So they have this mixed multitude of people in verse 4. And it says, who were of the mixed multitude who were among them, yielded to intense craving. Intense craving. Intense craving. Okay? They yielded to intense craving. And so so the children of Israel also wept again and said, who will give us meat to eat? That was their intense craving. It was for meat. That's what their intense craving was. It's because they felt like, hey, I don't have enough meat. And we all have our cravings from time to time, right? Every once in a while, I really crave a Pepsi. Okay, Pepsi. Anybody else? Pepsi? Okay. Pepsi, Coca-Cola. I never drink Coca-Cola. Have you noticed that Coca-Cola, that the can is completely red? Have you noticed that? It's because they're communists. Okay. Pepsi is what? What color are those Pepsi can?
Blue, silver, and red.
And some white in there too, right?
Yeah.
Red, white, and blue, baby. Right? Pepsi. Right? Doesn't matter. Either one will kill you. But every once in a while, it's like, I just got to have a Pepsi. And it's rare, but every once in a while. And if at home tacos are being made, sometimes I'll come in, tacos are already there, and it's like, oh man, I wish I had a Pepsi. Every once in a while I come in and I'll see that tacos are being made, and occasionally, it is rare, but occasionally it'll be like, tacos? I'll be right back. Get in the car, down the street, around the corner from my house is a gas station with a convenience store. Go in, get a bottle of Pepsi. Ice cold Pepsi. Every once in a while. It is rare. But we all have those cravings from time to time where we just feel like, man, I got to have it. Maybe yours is Zingers, or maybe yours is, Hot Cheetos, or whatever it is that you crave. But these guys, this group, had this intense craving for meat. And so it says in verse 4 that this mixed multitude, they gave in to this intense craving. And then the children of Israel joined in and wept again. And here's what they cried. Who will give us meat to eat? We want meat. We want meat, Verse 5. Here's what they say. Look at this. We remember the fish which we ate freely in Egypt. The cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, the garlic. I get it. I like those things too, especially the onion, especially the garlic. And they're saying, man, we remember when we were in Egypt, we ate it good. Leeks and onions, and we had fish whenever we wanted it, man. Oh. But see, what they're doing is, and we all understand what it is that they're missing here. We miss all of the food. But they weren't thinking about the slavery that they were in. The hard work that they had to do. The work that they were doing for their Egyptian masters and not for themselves. The poverty that they were living in. They were trapped there. They weren't thinking about that. All they were thinking about was their bellies. And in verse 6 they say, but now, look at this. But this is so dramatic. But now our whole being is dried up. There is nothing at all except this manna before our eyes. And we'll talk about manna, what that is, in just a moment. But look how dramatic in verse 6. Now our whole being is dried up. Man, I'm just dying. There's no way. I need this other thing or I am going to die. Mom, I'm dying. You have to buy me another dress. Dad, you have to buy me another shirt or these new shoes. I have to have it. If I don't have it, I'm going to die. You might feel like I need to date that person or I'm going to die. Or life without that person. My life is just drying up without that person. I've got to take that person to prom. They had these intense cravings, and what they're forgetting is that they were enslaved in Egypt. Oh, that's right. Along with the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. Along with all those things came a life of slavery. Now, we're familiar, somewhat familiar, with slavery because our country, our United States, was involved in slavery for a long time. So we're familiar with what we get the kind of general idea of what that life was like. Not an easy life. What he does in verses 7 through 9, it's just like parenthesis section where he tells us about the manna. Now, they had been eating manna for a little while already. God had been providing manna. But what is manna? They say at the end of verse 6, there's nothing at all except this manna before our eyes. We ain't got nothing but manna. Verse 7, now the manna was like the coriander seed, and its color like the color of bdellium. The people went about and gathered it, ground it on millstones or beat it in the mortar, cooked it in pans, made cakes of it, and its taste was like the taste of pastry prepared with oil. And when the dew fell on the camp at night, then manna fell on top of the dew so that they didn't have dirt in their manna. They could collect it without getting dirt in it. But it was this manna, and the word manna actually means what is it? Because they saw it and they were like, what is it? And that's the name, that's what stuck. What is it? But you can see there in verse 8, it says that they gathered it, they ground it, they beat it, they cooked it, made cakes of it. They had used manna in every way that they knew possible. All the different recipes. Can you imagine? Manna cakes. And over in the San Bernardino area, there's manna donuts. Like my favorite. Manna donuts. Winchell's, whatever. Whatever the other ones are, but manna donuts from God. Right? These guys had tried making manna, using it in every way possible, and they were just getting tired of it. I understand. It's like, there's only so many ways that you can make it. But manna is what they had because God had provided that. Now the problem is here in this chapter that they have become ungrateful. They're no longer thankful for that. At first it was a blessing. It was miraculous. God's raining down this manna onto the ground. All we got to do is scoop it up and eat it. This is incredible. But then after a while, as so often happens, so often is the case, that what God has blessed me with in the beginning is so exciting, but then it just becomes like, oh, it's just, who cares? Some of us have that feeling toward church. Let's just be honest. We have that feeling toward church. When you were little, coming to church or maybe attending a different church, do you remember? You were out of your mind. You were like a totally just a little goofball, man. Songs would come on in the classroom, and you'd be marching around. Some may trust in airplanes and chariot. And you'd go do all the moves and VBS, man. Boom, you're here. You're excited. You're going crazy. Love Jesus. I got a shirt. I love Jesus. And you're in the sanctuary. VBS. Cheering for Jesus. And you're just doing all the dance moves and all crazy and learning the Bible stories. You have a little Bible with little picture Bible, all the stories. Mom, Dad, could you read this for me? And come on. And when we're gonna go, I see little kids still. Like, come on, when we going to church, or, class, when are you going to take me to class? Excited. But then something happens over the years, right? Elementary, junior high, high school. That's when all of a sudden the coolness, man, all of a sudden you're just like, man, I didn't know I was this cool. And all of a sudden, all of those things can fade away. I can become tired of them. It's just mundane. It's the same old thing. Oh, yeah, I don't know. What even is this? Who cares? And I can find myself in the same exact condition. It was a heart condition. I can find myself in that same spot. Like, I'm just tired of the same old thing. You know, in the beginning, it was exciting. God gave it to me. It was a blessing. Now it's just, oh, man, I've had it with that stuff. The people were in the same condition, and it was a heart condition. It was a heart condition. They were no longer happy with what God had rained down, and was still raining down. They were not happy with it anymore. Give us something else we need to meet. And it gets to the point where even Moses gets caught up in the complaining. Then Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, everyone at the door of his tent. And the anger of the Lord was greatly aroused. Now, we began this chapter talking about God's anger being aroused. And that time, when God's anger was aroused, he struck people with fire. So when it says here in verse 10 that his anger was greatly aroused, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, here comes fire again. Like, they did not learn their lesson. I think their saving grace is Moses' displeasure. Because we read there at the end of verse 10 that the anger of the Lord was greatly aroused. And then it says, Moses also was displeased. And I wonder if God's anger was aroused, and then maybe he's about to judge or strike the people, and then he notices that Moses is displeased. And then his attention turns toward Moses. Now, he's not forgotten about the people, but his focus is on Moses now. And in verse 11 it says, so Moses said to the Lord, why have you afflicted your servant? Why are you treating me this way? And why have I not found favor in your sight, that you have laid the burden of all these people on me? Moses says. Did I conceive all these people? Did I give birth to them, that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom, as a guardian carries a nursing child to the land which you swore to their father? These are not even my people. These are your people. And now they're all burdening me with their weeping and their crying and their complaining. And so Moses is letting God have it, man, like just hitting them with questions. Boom, 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 boom. You know, what is this? He says in verse 12, or rather verse 13, where am I to get meat to give all these people? For they weep all over me, saying, give us meat that we may eat. I am not able to bear all these people alone, excuse me, because the burden is too heavy for me. And he gets to this point in his displeasure in verse 15 where Moses says to God, why don't you just kill me? It'd be better if you just kill me. It'd be better if you just kill me right now. He's so displeased, so distraught, so depressed that he gets to the point where he tells God, it'd be better if you just kill me. He says in verse 15, if you treat me like this, please kill me here and now. If I have found favor in your sight, if you love me, kill me. Do not let me see my wretchedness. Get me out of here. Just kill me. That's how low Moses sunk. Because he gets caught up. He hears the people complaining. And then he gets caught up in it. And he starts to complain to God. And that complaining, what started with displeasure, ended in depression. And he's now at the point where I'd rather just die. Now, I do have to point this out. Why was it that Moses was there? Because Moses is being selfish. This problem where the people are complaining, it's actually not his problem. It's not his problem. He didn't call all those people out of Egypt. That was God. All he needed to do in this instance was to say, look, you can save all your complaining. You know how we say save the drama for your mama? You can take all that to God, man. That's all he needed to do was just go to God and say, hey, God, your people are complaining. So you can go deal with them. But instead he gets caught up with it. And that displeasure turns to depression. The depression sets in and he gets to the point where he says, man, it'd just be better if I just die. But it was selfishness. He was focused on himself. What he didn't like about the scenario, what he didn't love about the situation, the way that people were complaining to him. Learned a valuable lesson, and the lesson there is, you know what? People are complaining, or all these other things are going on. Listen, God, these are your, man, this is your problem. I love in the book of Nehemiah how he did that time and time and time again. There were these individuals, Sanballat, Tobiah, and Gashmu. What kind of name is that? Come on. You know he's no good. But they were coming and trying to distract Nehemiah from rebuilding the wall. Sending these messages, like, hey, come and meet with us in the plain of Ono. And Nehemiah responds. All Nehemiah does is he sends a message. Oh no, I'm not coming to Ono. Because I'm busy rebuilding the wall and you don't have any part of it. Goodbye. It just keeps on working. He essentially, all he does is he says, hey God. And he prays, Nehemiah prays all the time. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, they're trying to distract me. And he just gives it to God and keeps moving. Moses was not able to do that here. Moses is a leader that is under construction. He's still being developed. He's a work in progress, a whip, right? Work in progress. God is still developing him. And he gets caught up in the complaining here. He just basically levels all of these, questions or accusations at God. Like, these are not even my people. They're your people. I'm sick of hearing them. And, why don't you just go ahead and kill me? What is God's response in verse 16? Again, we learned some wonderful lessons here. What is God's response? Look what God does. Does he send down fire? Verse 16. So the Lord said to Moses, gather to me 70 men of the children of Israel, the elders of Israel, whom you know to be elders of the people. These are people that are leaders and officers over them. Bring them to the tabernacle of meeting, that they may stand there with you. Then I will come down and talk with you there. I will take of the Spirit that is upon you, Moses, and will put the same upon them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with you. You see, God sent men for Moses to assist him, to carry the burden, to help him out. So wonderful, a wonderful response from God, a merciful response to God. This is how God operates. He is most of the time merciful. Yes, there are those times of judgment, which we open up this chapter with. Yeah, there are those times of discipline. But for the most part, he's merciful, and he's merciful here to Moses, and says, I'm gather up some men for you to help you bear the burden. He says at the end of verse 17 that you may not bear it yourself alone. I see you, Moses. I see you're struggling, and I'm going to send you some help. Nothing better than that. When a leader gets, some help from God, I'm going to send you some people. And then in verse 18, God's attention is turned back toward the people. And that's where we get this. We get meat for a month. Oh, meat. Now, there are some of us in here that are vegetarians. You don't like meat. And that's fine. But there are other people in here that love meat. Bacon. Steak. Bacon-wrapped steak. T-bones, ribeyes, ribs, all of that stuff. Barbecue, like yes, bring it on, right? And at first, meat for a month is like, oh man, meat for a month, man, that sounds good. I like that. Maybe it's one of those subscription things that God is going to give them, You seen those where you pay a certain amount of money and they'll send you a box of all these choice meats, some designer bacon in there, and it's like, oh yeah, love it. Let's find out what God's talking about. He tells Moses, he's instructed Moses. Now, his attention turns back toward the people. He says, then you shall say to the people, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, and you shall eat meat. Woo! For you have wept in the hearing of the Lord, saying, who will give us meat to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. We were better off in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you meat, and you shall eat. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yep, God's going to give us some meat. He says in verse 19, this is God speaking, you shall eat, not 1 day. What? Nor 2 days. More than that? Nor 5 days. What? Meat? Nor 10 days. We got to have more meat. And nor 20 days. Wow, we're going to have enough meat more than 20 days. He says, but for a whole month until it comes out of your nostrils. God says, you want meat? You want to cry, complain? You want to be unthankful for the things that I gave you? I'll give you so much meat that you're going to vomit it up and it's going to come out of your nostrils. Everybody has done that before. You've choked or you threw up and, you were drinking some soda or so, soda comes out of your nose, man, it burns like crazy, right? You ever done that? No? Like, no, I've never thrown up in my life. Liars. But that soda comes out, it's like, oh, and God says, I'm going to give you so much meat, man, that you're going to be sick of it. You're going to barf it up and it's going to come out of your nose. He says, you want to cry and complain? You want to not be grateful? All right, I'm going to hook you up. It's like, no, God, no, don't hook me up. I was just kidding. But we got to be careful, man. Sometimes we can be so whiny with the Lord and crying and complaining and how come I don't have this and why didn't I get the new Air Force Ones and how come I didn't how come I can't do such and such and how come we can't go eat there and why can't we go vacation there and why can't I have that guy or why can't I have that girl and come on God and we can complain so much that there may be a point that God says, okay, you want it? I'll hook you up. And I've seen it in the area of relationships over the years. People who didn't want to wait for the Lord. Some young lady, like, no, he's this. Look at him. I mean, man, he smells like H&M, and like, let's I think this is from the Lord. And no, I'm not waiting for God. I'm just going to go get this myself, and I'm going to win this guy. And they win that guy only to later on be sorry that they ever won that guy. Because, yeah, it looks good. He's got muscles, but then gravity sets in, and those muscles, boom, become a belly. They change. But maybe we had our eyes set on something else, the outward appearance, and we weren't concerned with anything else. Same thing with the guys and the girls. But man, I gotta get this girl, I gotta get the hookups, and gotta take her to prom, I gotta do this, and we have all these thoughts, man, and we're not consulting the Lord, we're just trying to get it on our own, and then maybe we just, like, come on, Lord, why don't you hook me up, I'm yours, I belong to you, and just come on, look, she's beautiful, and man, she's got a little cross necklace, she must be a Christian, Lord, give her to me, and we can go after something that God is saying, no, it's not time yet, you gotta wait, I gotta develop that person still. She's not ready yet. He's not ready yet. Hold on. They're still in the oven, man. We're still cooking. They're not done yet. And we jump in, crying and complaining to the Lord. And there may come a time where God says, "All right, you want to forget my will? You want to do your own will? Go for it." And then afterwards, we're sorry. I've seen it more. I've seen it too many times. People who go ahead and get married. And then like, man, what was I thinking? Why did I do this? Why, then there's regret. Then there's, what does the Bible say about divorce? How can I get out of this? Because now there's regret. Now there's sorrow. We've got to be grateful for what God has given us. It would have been better for the people to say, God, I'd really like a steak, God. But I'll be satisfied with manna. If you decide to drop a steak out of the sky, I'll be there to catch it, Lord. Whatever you want. But they were not in that mindset. The only thing they could see was, we don't have enough. We don't have enough. We don't have what we want. We got to be careful, man. We got to be so careful. I've been to the Philippines, and I went into this house where this family had 2 little boys that played the ukulele, and both boys were born blind. We go into this house. The house is completely dark because there's no electricity in the house. They got no refrigerator. They got no sink. They have a cement block house with dirt floors, no doors, some windows cut out, door cut out. and they said, hey, our sons, they can play the ukulele. We said, hey, go get your uke, man. And they came back out. They found their way to the room, got the ukulele, came out, and started playing this song, this worship song together. Barefoot little kids, nothing in the house, not a crumb of bread in there, nothing. Had nothing. And then we can find ourselves, man, going through our closets like, man, I don't see nothing in here. Going through the refrigerator like, man, there's nothing in here. I'm going to go check the refrigerator in the garage because, man, we have two. Like, you know, we just got it like that, you know. We go into, where our one house is not enough. I got to have a house for my car. We call it a garage. You know, like, let me build a nice, you know, house for my garage. And that's not enough. I need a house for my dog also. We'll be living in 3 houses, man. And we got it like that. So we've got to be careful that we're satisfied, we're thankful for what we have. And God, if you want to give something different, something else, great. But if not, I'm fine with this. Fine with this manna. I'll make some more manicotti. It'll be fine. I like Italian. Okay? And so he says, but for a whole month in verse 20, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you, because you have despised the Lord who is among you, and have wept before him, saying, why did we ever come up out of Egypt? Like, why did we ever leave slavery? It was so much better when we were slaves. Insane in the membrane. And Moses said in verse 21, the people whom I am among are 600,000. Moses is not done with God here. The people that I have here, there's 600,000 men. That's just the men, the guys that are on foot. That's it. There's more than that. Yet you have said, I will give them meat, that they may eat for a whole month. And he says, shall flocks and herds be slaughtered for them, to provide enough for them? Or shall all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them, to provide for them? Moses, didn't you hear what God said? God said, I will give them meat. In fact, Moses even says that in verse 21. Look what it says there. Yet you have said, I will give them meat. And look at God's response in verse 23. And the Lord said to Moses, has the Lord's arm been shortened? Like, Moses, I told you I would provide meat for them. I didn't tell you to do it. I said I would do it. That is none of your business. Do you think that the Lord's arm has gotten shorter and he can't reach his supply? What do you think? God is rebuking Moses here like, man, I did not ask you to give them meat. I didn't tell you that. I said I would provide it. I didn't say you would provide it. So all Moses needs to do, man, is deliver the message and then electric slide to the left. And just let God do whatever God wants to do. That's all that Moses is responsible for, is for delivering a message. That's it. God will do the rest. That's it. So you got to just let God do it. And in verse 24, so Moses went out and told the people the words of the Lord, and he gathered the 70 men of the elders of the people and placed them around the tabernacle. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to him, and took of the Spirit that was upon him and placed some upon the 70 elders. And it happened when the Spirit rested upon them that they prophesied, although they never did so again. Now in verses 26 through 30, we get this kind of parentheses again. We kind of focus on this prophesying, but we'll come back to the food in just a moment. Verse 26. But 2 men had remained in the camp, like, I'm not going over there. I'm one of the 70, but I'm not going. The name of one was Eldad, and the name of the other, Medad. And the Spirit rested upon them. Even though they didn't show up to the meeting, the Spirit still rested upon them. Now they were among those listed, but who had not gone out to the tabernacle. Yet they prophesied in the camp. And a young man ran and told Moses and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. They didn't show up, but they're prophesying. So Joshua, the son of Nun, Joshua, we know, he's going to take over after Moses years from now. But in this instance, look what Joshua says. Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, one of his choice men, answered and said, Moses, my Lord, forbid them, with an exclamation mark. Did you hear that? His assistant is now telling him what to do. This young man Joshua, who would become a fantastic leader later on, he's learning leadership right now under Moses, but he's the assistant. But now he finds himself telling Moses, he doesn't like that these two guys are prophesying. Well, they didn't show up for the meeting, so why do they get blessed with that stuff? They shouldn't be doing that. And Moses said to him in verse 29, are you zealous for my sake? Oh, that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his spirit upon them all. And Moses returned to the camp, both he and the elders of Israel. Like Joshua, it's none of your business, man. God can bless whoever he wants to bless. And in verse 31 and 32, we find that this meat, there's meat for a month. The first thing we find is that it is extensive. When God provides, man, he outdoes himself. Verse 31, now a wind went out from the Lord, and it brought quail from the sea and left them fluttering near the camp. About a day's journey on this side, and about a day's journey on the other side, all around the camp. And about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground. So these quail, they were piled up on top of one another. So God directed them in for the people. And in verse 32, and the people stayed up all that day, all night, and all the next day, and gathered the quail. He who gathered least gathered 10 homers. That's a large amount. That was the least amount. And they spread them out for themselves all around the camp. Oh, look at all this quail that we have. Oh, man. And they're looking at it like, ooh, look at all this. You know, you probably at some point in your life have come across a good chunk of money. Maybe it was for birthday, you know, open up a birthday card from grandma or grandpa, you know, and you got like, man, there's 50 bucks in there. Maybe you got blessed with $100 or something, you know, and you take that and you spread it out like, ooh, look at all this money I got, right? And then you go to one store, boom, done. You realize $100, that's nothing. Let's go, Granny, step it up next time. Need 200, put 2 bills in there, right? They spread it all out. They're looking at it. And the next thing they find out is that this meat is expensive meat. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was aroused against the people. And the Lord struck the people with a very great plague. They paid with their lives for this meat. Why? Because they had no notice of God. They didn't gather up the meat and say, thank you so much, God. All they were focused on was, how much of this meat can I gather up for myself? How much of this meat can I gather up for my family? Total selfishness. Total selfishness. And because of that, God's anger is aroused and they pay with their lives, man. Expensive. Was it worth it? No. So we call the name of that place Kibroth Hatava, which means graves of craving, because there they buried the people who had yielded to craving. From Kibroth Hatava, the people moved to Hazeroth and encamped at Hazeroth. You know, in Psalm 106, it gives us an account of the travels of the journey of Israel. But in Psalm 106, verse 13 through 15, it says this: they soon forgot his works. They did not wait for his counsel, but lusted exceedingly in the wilderness and tested God in the desert. And in verse 15 of Psalm 106, it says, and he gave them their request, but sent leanness into their soul. He gave them their request. But spiritually they were sick. We want the opposite to happen. We want God to fill up our soul. Not leanness, but fullness. And if that means that we have to go without other things, you know, maybe we go without a full fridge or go without a full closet. Or we go without things, as long as our soul is full, we'll be satisfied. But the problem is that when you desire and lust after things, there may be times where God gives you a request, but then your soul becomes lean. You're spiritually sick or spiritually unhealthy. And the problem with that is like soda. You know when you're thirsty, crack open that Pepsi or grape soda or whatever kind, you know, and you drink that thing. Oh man, for a moment it's like, woo, quench my thirst. But what happens a little while later? Anybody? You're like, I don't know. I don't even know what soda is. I've never had one in my life. Come on. You have them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You drink a soda, and then it quenches your thirst for a short time, but then a little bit later you're thirsty again. Oh, man. I don't want water. Give me another soda. Crack goes in. What happens is you're not really being satisfied. You think you are. It's momentary. But then you find that you crave that sugar more and more and more and more, but it's not satisfying your thirst. What I want is the opposite to happen. What I want is for my soul to become full. I don't want God to just give me my request. I want God to do, whatever's best for me, God. That's what I want. Yeah, yes, I would like this thing or I want this thing, but God, it's according to your will. Don't let it come at the expense of my soul. I want to be spiritually healthy. Spiritually healthy. It's so funny when I go to my barber. I've been going to my barber since I was in high school. When I first started going to my barber, he's a little bit older than me. When I first started going to the barber, he had this nice, what we call copete. It's like a pompadour, man. Nice hair. Now he's completely bald, man. All his hair fell out. And we laugh about it because some of you have seen my son. My son's 25, thick hair, good looking guy. And I'll tell my son, yeah, your hair's pretty cool. Better enjoy it, because it's going to start falling out. I go to the barber, and the barber will be cutting my hair, and we crack up because he's a Christian. And he'll be like, hey, man. He has an accent. Hey, Christopher, your hair's getting thin, bro. I said, I know, dude. Remember when I first came, it used to be all thick, all kinds of hair. And we crack up. But I'll tell him, yeah, but, hey, the outer man is perishing. I'm dying. That's what we all do. We're all dying. The outer man is perishing, but the inner man is being renewed day by day by day by day. That's the goal. Yeah, you're beautiful right now. Young, beautiful, fit, Drink whatever you want, sodas, eat whatever you want. Not a big deal. But the outer man is perishing. The point is this, maybe, you can get older. Well, I could do plastic surgery. Okay, go ahead, do all that, whatever you want to do. But listen, the goal is that as the outer man perishes, gets older, that the inner man or the inner woman, your spirit, is being renewed day by day. That's the goal. So that when I'm all old and saggy and gray and wrinkled up, that the spirit is full, that the spirit is sweet. Not that I've spent all my time chasing other things that weren't really satisfying me, and then as I got older, the spirit is, my soul is lean. I got nothing there. End up some empty old, old person, grouchy and angry because, life didn't go the way I wanted it to or whatever. No, what I want to do is I want to set my eyes on the Lord, let Him give whatever He wants to give. Father, thank you so much for your word.